Hi. This is new for me. You haven't seen me on YouTube in a long time. You've gone through the trivial part of my life and the most painful part of my life, and perhaps sometimes the most violent. You stood by me through thick and through thin. I'm asking you now to hear something. I'm asking you to understand something that is difficult for most human beings to understand, especially the human element. As you know, I have my own history, and it's a sad one, but sadder is my daughter's. She was only 13. I don't like to talk about it. I don't think many people do. I know how hard it is, and I know what they are. Pedophiles usually hit children between the ages of newborn to age 11. After they turn 12 or 13, they've started to develop. They really want nothing to do with them. They throw them away. At 13, the child, who is still a child, can be made up like a doll, make to look older than they are. And therefore, that's where the pornography comes in. Is it child pornography? In my opinion, it was. It was my child. I do not stand by any pedophile. I just as soon shoot them in the head and see them even spend taxpayers' money. In my opinion, they don't deserve to live. You've seen me. You know me. You've heard me. You watched me beg and cry. You've watched me tell people off from a distance that I didn't even know, but I did. And she was way over 13 at that time. She was in her 30s. But the nightmare continued. It is not considered pedophilia after the child reaches the age of 11 or 12, usually 11. After that, it becomes a whole section of itself. It becomes a statutory crime. From 12 to 17, little girls especially are looked at as a possession. Oh, so many of us women have gone through this. So many. Remember Pretty Baby? That was a hard film. You know how old she was, Brooke Shields? She was 13 or 14 when she made that movie. Jodie Foster in the movie Taxi. I think she was 13. It was hard. They were both hard films. Do we call those movie directors and writers pedophiles? No, we don't. Tasteless? Maybe. Absolutely. I've watched each movie once, and it was enough for me. But then I watched them again after I lost my daughter. I know that you think that by losing her, I lost her. She wasn't dead. I just didn't know her anymore. It changes them. To be sexualized in a way that most women have been for centuries. Women, young girls, used to be put out to breed, to marry, to be possessed. And they did what they were told when they were told. It was no crime to marry a 13-year-old. Until finally we became a little more civilized in the 50s and 60s. Not much, but some. I've asked myself so many questions so many times. But now I'm going to tell you something. Because I know someone who's been falsely accused of a crime and of crimes he never commit or committed. His name is Honest Frank, or as he calls himself, Honest and Frank. I have talked to him many times. I've almost interviewed him. I've questioned him up and down. He was a child who was molested when he was young by his own brother. After a while, when a child is molested, they get confused. Did they enjoy it or not? And why even a social worker would ask that, I have no idea. But people ask that too. It's as if the child caused something or committed a crime, when in fact they didn't. Also, he mentioned in an interview that 14-year-olds, if they look sexy, then they don't look their age, then men are going to be turned on by them. Actually, his protestation was actually true. I've seen young girls walk down the street and construction workers go wild with their wolf whistles. We thought we had gone beyond that, especially in the year 2019. But the guys up there on the metal bars balancing on beams don't know, or do they care? They get online and they sexualize women. They watch their pornography, and then they point their finger at what they call a pedophile. This person that I know, that I've interviewed, that I've talked to, is not one. He's been falsely accused by people who have not looked over the stats, or the fact that he is not a registered sex offender in any part of New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, none of them. There's no East Ward list of him having to be signed up. There's a registration that goes all over the United States. You can look it up online. You can find names there that are registered sex offenders. A sex offender does not necessarily have to be a pedophile. There could be rapists. There can be wife beaters who rape their wives. They have to register. It could be somebody peeing in a bush. They have to register because it's considered flashing. People do not realize what this does to somebody when they're slandered like this. I completely agree that the man has said some things that have been off color. Definitely. But not to cause such a fury as I've seen online. If he could afford an attorney, he could win. And I know he would. He has been with one woman for 31 years. They never had children. He is who he is. He suffered many years ago delusions. And sometimes when he would make a video, it was very delusional. Mistakes made, words wrong, worded wrong. And many people completely willing to take him apart and slander him because he is a different person. I do suggest you look up the sexual registration. United States, all 50 states, and find him. And you won't. I looked at it very closely. He doesn't have a record. We have to look at ourselves. Not blame our children for things they got caught up in. And definitely never blame an innocent victim. Never blame any of them. For whatever reason, girls get picked on the most. If we wear too much makeup, we wear a short skirt, we're whores. But the men and some women who watch those vids are the real whores. Because they pay into it, don't they? If they only knew how many of those pornography actresses up there were under the age of 18, they'd be embarrassed. Completely. I made this film because, one, you haven't seen me in a while. And two, I think someone needs to be protected from slander. But three, I also wanted to tell you that my daughter's been home with me for 4 years. She'll probably live with me for the rest of my life, be it short or be it long. I do know that I will never lose her again. I know what a pedophile is. I know what they do. But this man, Honest and Frank, or Honest Frank, however he calls himself, he is not a pedophile. I swear to that on the Bible. I swear to that on my life. Maybe I'll be in peace. And let's be kind to each other. Please.